welcome Hattie. So we have Hattie of Thorpe's Haircuts and Color, and I'm super excited to talk about going deskless and just kind of the whole deskless model with you today. If you could, just for those who maybe don't know you as well as we do, just introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about how you came into salon ownership.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I have been in the industry maybe 12 years now, and I totally should have known that I was destined to do hair when I was a little kid and um, cutting all of my friends' hair and then getting in trouble with their parents for doing so. Um, and I remember even my parents being like, yeah, cut my hair. They were just taking me to cost cutters um, but I really uh got into it, and I was a theater kid and I did all the hair for all the plays and such growing up, and I thought that it would be that I would end up going to school for theater, but I graduated high school during the recession and quickly learned that getting into a ton of student loan debt for an acting degree seemed like a terrible idea. And so I quickly pivoted and went to beauty school and then just never looked back. I ended up falling in love with being behind the chair and started at the salon that I'm currently part owner of right out of school. So my now business partner was at a career fair at our beauty school, the Aveda Institute here in Madison, and met her then and have been doing all sorts of things since. I didn't realize when I started just how like multifaceted the salon world was. And over the years, I've traveled teaching for a major product and color company and became an educator both on the road and in the salon, and got really involved with salon leadership and uh, mostly the education side of things. But when 2020 started, when the pandemic hit, it was kind of, a soul searching moment. I ended up at first leaving the salon to start my own. And when I left, I had a very unique thing happen where my former boss asked, like, how can we support you, how can we invest in you and your new business adventure endeavor, and we ended up actually looking at doing a build out on a second salon and didn't end up going that route. We ended up just deciding, like, let's just do one salon as well as we can. And so we actually now have three different people who co-own and operate the salon today. And it's a really nice time because we went deskless in 2020, and that just really opened up a lot of new possibilities to have multiple co-owners. And having a small business is so much work, and so it really gives us all like a semblance of a life balance to have each other to lean on, and we all have different strengths. So in our business partnership, it can be challenging having partnerships, but you can just do so much more with a lot of other people.
Awesome. Yeah. So I remember hearing about your story and kind of when we chatted previously, and I thought it was so cool, kind of how you came into the business and really just elevated to where you are now. And I know obviously I'm stoked that we're talking about going deskless because I know that really it started to become popular and make waves when the pandemic was just kind of like going through. So I guess my biggest question for you is really what was it in the business that just made you guys think we've got to make this change? Because I feel like that change can be really scary for a lot of people who are very accustomed to having a front desk specifically. So, what was it, if anything in particular, that just made you guys decide, you know what, we have got to go ahead and change this model?
Honestly, the front desk was quite a pain point for us. So we were searching for a solution for that pain point. We just found that stylists really wanted a lot of autonomy. And so they would walk up to the front desk and they would boss the front desk person around. And if anything ever went wrong, it was always the front desk's person's fault that, the towels weren't done or whatever it was. And it was really challenging because it's also a position we live in a very high cost of living area. And so for us to pay like $50,000 to $100,000 a year to have a front desk staff member, we would ideally have somebody who was really consistent and amazing and loved the job and everything about it. However, we tended to find folks who it wasn't their full-time thing, it was just a part-time thing, and we either wouldn't have full coverage at the desk, or the people that we would find, sometimes we would get really lucky and get somebody who is like dramatically overqualified for the job,
Right.
who was experiencing burnout and just wanted a change. But a lot of times we would find younger folks with not a lot of work experience who weren't really invested. It wasn't a career for them, it was more of a job. And uh, that just led to a lot of time spent trying to onboard the next person and a lot of turnover, when that turnover was affecting, how smooth things would run day to day.
Right, right. Well, and I know that when it comes to a front desk in general, retention is a huge part of it. And obviously, like you mentioned, time spent kind of onboarding the next, because it can be, somewhat of a transient position almost, in a lot of cases. So, and you also mentioned as well that like your stylist would kind of go up and, and talk to the front desk person and just like really not have this great sounding relationship. So I guess another question that I have for you really is, it sounds like overall the workflow has changed for sure, but it sounds like morale and probably empowerment of your stylists has also gone up. So would you be able to kind of expand on like how everybody adapted into their new responsibilities, and overall was that change, I'm assuming, very positive, like morale went up? Explain to me a little bit about like the immediate versus the long-term effects of that in the overall kind of, atmosphere.
Yeah, so I think it was a big culture shift for us. I think it put a lot more responsibility back on our stylists
Mm-hmm.
to manage their books a little bit more. But there was an immediate payoff, which was when we changed to not having that position, we put in 3 more stations. So there we were already at a bigger capacity to um, grow our team and bring in more revenue. And in turn, we upped everybody's commission to 48%. So no matter what price point you're at our salon, no matter what your experience level, you automatically get paid 48% of what you bring in. So for us, there was this immediate like, oh, wow, everybody's paycheck just went up, because we used to have a very confusing way of how we calculated what somebody took home, and it was more variable. So everybody saw a pay increase, and the trade-off was more responsibility, which of course at first people don't like. It's like telling a kid that they have to do something, they have to clean their room, or they have to,
Extra
whatever.
short. Yeah.
At first, there's a little bit of a begrudging vibe, but very quickly, I think it's really, in the long run, helped us attract career-minded hairdressers who really take their craft and their business quite seriously, and kind of naturally weeds out people who don't, because there's more accountability. Like, if you are running 10 minutes late and your client is waiting for you and somebody else has to go take care of that issue, that's a way bigger issue than putting all of that stuff on the front desk person. And we do still have some clients where some older folks who ultimately do want to talk to somebody, and they're a lot more respectful talking to me as one of the owners of the salon, who's they know is really invested in them having a good experience, than sometimes how they would talk to the front desk staff, just thinking that they're just some face
That's
to the
fair.
business. So I think it fosters a really good sense of communication and accountability.
Yeah. Now it sounds like you guys would never go back, which I which I love, because I really do love the kind of deskless model, that you guys have. Were there any, obviously everybody kind of had to adapt to, their different workflows and like new responsibilities, but you mentioned earlier, that you guys all maintain this really great work-life balance, which we love to hear, and I think that's critical in any business. Were there any specific workflows or technologies that you guys implemented that really kind of helped make the change, or was it really as easy as eliminating that position and putting more responsibility. Was it that easy, or was there really anything that kind of helped you guys make the transition?
Yeah, so Aura was really integral in that experience. We had the benefit of time on our hands because we did build these new stations and change to a software during the COVID shutdown, the Safer at Home at first. So we had a bit of time on our hands. That being said, it's never convenient or easy to switch to a new software.
Yeah.
But we had been through it, and there was always something that we didn't like about so many softwares. They were extra complicated, and it took, clicking like 7 different buttons to get the report that you wanted. Or we wanted a software that supported our deskless model, but we just couldn't envision it because we're like, who's going to communicate with the client? How are we going to greet them when they arrive? How are we going to check them out? All of this sort of stuff. And so the arrival feature, where it texts your clients that their appointment is coming up, and they respond when they arrive, that sort of technology really helped us. And I think especially for younger clients, they really prefer it. We've noticed, so many more of our clients online book these days. And I know myself, like, I've even gotten to that point, which I am not scared of talking on the phone at all. But there's a spa nearby, and I have gone onto their website late at night, 11 p.m. I'm tired, I'm achy from the day. I'm like, oh, I should book myself a spa service there. I've heard it's this super nice spa, but they don't have online booking. And like, I've just never gone there because I can't just, and somebody recently told me that they now have it, but it just, like, I could have gone there years ago, but it just deterred me. And so that was sort of a turning point in my head, where I'm like, okay, yeah, everybody's just getting used to these changes, integrating these new amazing technologies into our day-to-day and making our lives more seamless and easy.
I love to hear that we were able to help automate a lot of that. I think during the time too, in 2020 when lockdowns were occurring, everybody in the industry was scrambling on what's next. You know what I mean? So switching softwares is one thing, but also there wasn't really, in my personal opinion, a huge precedent for just overall a deskless model.
Yeah.
So you're right, you had this kind of additional time to really kind of make it work. But I think, again, I mean, how scary,
Yeah.
that could have been at the time. Another thing too that I think about, because obviously, we've established that morale, like overall, pretty much everything has improved since changing it. And I really love the point that you made about, whenever someone does initiate content, they need that verbal person. You know what I mean? They need to speak to somebody. They treat you in a specific way that they might not have treated, a front desk individual. And I think, I really, really think it's cool kind of what you guys have done with it and how you've been able to eliminate the need. I guess another thing too that I don't want to say I'm overlooking, but I'm like, man, this sounds so great overall. Like, financially, how I can only assume this has benefited you guys in saving money, time, just overall kind of energy. Can you elaborate a little bit on like where you guys have seen, I guess, the biggest like savings, both like time, money, what, you know what I mean? Because I imagine eliminating a position is one going to save you, like you mentioned, the time to onboard somebody brand new. But also there's got to be something financially that you guys are recouping as well in the business.
Yeah, so another sort of catalyst, originally when we eliminated having a physical front desk, we put in 3 more stations. And so that took our salon from a 13 chair to a 16 chair salon, which increased our capacity to hire. And immediately we saw an increase there, in money coming in. And then also, uh, we the person who we had working for us asked if they could work from home. And if that isn't sort of like an illustration of just like, if your front desk person wants to work from home, then like maybe we need to rethink things a little bit. That was really another catalyst.
Right.
And because it's just, part of the job is not, that's not the point of the role. So so when we eliminated that position, we actually did that at the same time as I bought in and became part owner of the salon. So that allowed us owners to make more money, which is fantastic because you don't decide to take on all the stress of a small business just for nothing. And that transition, it just made it super seamless to eliminate that position and bring me on somebody who has more investment in the betterment of the business. So a lot of things got reorganized and restructured and done differently and better when that change occurred. It also allows our staff to make their own schedules. So I think that that's, when thinking about competing with like rental suites, we have just started to get to a point where rental and going independent and suites are a huge thing. We're a little bit behind. We're on a very narrow strip of land between a bunch of lakes. So there is only so much, we have a huge like housing crisis and there's only so much real estate. So suites aren't a crazy thing here. So there's still sort of like this new thing that commission salons sort of have to compete with.
Right.
And for us, that helps us ultimately like retain some people who maybe would go off on their own, but they love being around other people. They have all the freedom and flexibility, but they don't have to do their own marketing. They don't have to do their own inventory. Those things are done for them. So it creates a workplace because we use communal stations, meaning nobody has an assigned station. We have 16 stations, and when you get to work, you set up your stuff at a different one. So that allows us to really, in turn, have a much happier staff because they all get to come and go as they please. And yeah, just not having to pay for that front desk person really just helps free up a lot of money, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you put it really well earlier when I kind of asked if there was any hesitation with like staff, right? And you said, to summarize, essentially, the model is going to attract the career-driven stylists that you ultimately want in your business. So it sounds like you've done that. And I didn't even think about to be honest, I didn't even think about the stylist retention. You know what I mean? On top of that being an added benefit and an added layer of, overall kind of like savings financially and also time wise, because you're spending less time just overall onboarding. So, really in conclusion, I think the last thing that I would like to overall ask you, because I think that, and we were chatting a little bit before we hopped in here with everybody, that in 2020 and 2021, there were a lot of conversations going on about going deskless, and it was all the rage. It was all everybody was talking about, and now it's still being done, but there's a little bit less of a a dialogue about it. So I guess my question is, if any of the individuals that we have in this call with us, or anybody who sees this recording after, from salon owner to salon owner, what would you say to anybody who is maybe thinking of implementing this, doesn't really know where to start, or maybe anybody that's a little bit just experiencing hesitation in terms of moving into a deskless model? What kind of advice, based on your experience going there, would you have for them?
I would
I know,
say,
loaded questions.
yeah, it's not as painful to rip the Band-Aid off
Yeah.
after you get through the first, like with any business change that you make, there is going to be that initial stress of change, but very quickly people adapt. And, a lot of times we can let the fears of other people around us, particularly sometimes people close to us, hold us back from making the business decisions that are bold and we feel like we need to make for our business because they fit our business. And sometimes we just got to do it. Sometimes the things that people look at you and say you're crazy for are the things that need to be done. And, um, how will it happen? It will. It just will. And I think the biggest thing that we ran into was people asking, well, who's going to answer the phone? And now we just have our every message goes to voicemail, and the voicemail just very quickly explains like the fastest way to book an appointment. Pardon me. I spent a lot of time around a campfire this weekend. And inhaled too much campfire smoke. So our voicemail is set up to direct people on the fastest way to make an appointment and how to contact their stylist if they're running late. Excuse me, sorry. And really it's cut down on the number. The way that we have our phone message set has really cut down on the number of phone calls and emails that I have to field. And it's not a huge part of my day. And a lot of times, if somebody does reach out, I just screenshot it, send it to the stylist, and say, hey, this person wants to move their appointment. Can you reach out to them? It's really using the, like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Eisenhower box, but it's like the do, delegate, schedule, or get rid of thing, where that work just gets funneled. And I think that was the biggest question, is like, who's going to answer the phone? And then, if somebody walks in to buy like a hair product or something, there's usually a stylist on a break. Everybody just chips in and somebody helps that person out. There's usually someone on break who can help that person purchase their product and take off. And if they already have a card on file, it's super fast. So the express pay checkout really helps. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but then once you have it set up, it's super easy for regulars. Like, making your customer experience as easy as can be from start to finish is something that we don't think about. Like, we make so many choices and we're on the internet all day, every day. And so we really get overwhelmed. And as much as we can like simplify the experience for people, the better it is.
It sounds like, just kind of to summarize, just having faith in both your staff and your clientele. Because like you mentioned, like you're fielding less calls, because really it sounds like if I were to call in, everything is going to be very instructional and kind of point me in the right direction anyway. So yeah, have faith in your staff, have faith in your clients, and make it work. Yeah, I love that. Okay.
And sometimes a little short-term pain for a long-term gain
is worth it. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And amazing. So thank you so much, Hattie, for kind of talking to me about Going Deskless. Everybody who's in the call, feel free to leave any questions in the chat, and we'll hang out for a minute just to kind of answer any questions that come through. I also have got to say, Hattie, I've loved watching like your camera in this call with like the photo right behind you.
One of my clients painted this.
Really? That's so cool.
And I stand just right, it looks like I have horns, which is fun.
I've loved it every single time you've talked, and I've kind of like looked, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so while we're waiting, for any questions in the chat, I think we've had a couple that I've been able to kind of just respond to. But if anybody would like to put anything in the chat, absolutely feel free. We will be sending out a recording of this call for anybody who is unable to make it or would just like to rewatch it. Also, because the theme of this call is Going Deskless for this month, anybody who chooses to sign on with Aura is not only going to get our white glove onboarding approach, but also a free complimentary iPad on us. So anybody coming from this roundtable event who signs on with Aura the month of October, you guys will be getting an iPad on us in the spirit of Going Deskless. So awesome. All right. Well, I do not see anything in the chat. Oh, here we go. I do have a question. So, Hattie, how have your older clientele adapted to Deskless? It looks like this person has a large elderly clientele.
Yeah, so I think initially our older folks, they will sometimes, they just want to know like how to do it. And so they'll walk in and they'll be like, well, who do I talk to? Where do I go? What do I, and so someone who's working in a station near the door always helps them, like, hey, nice to meet you. Come on in, make yourself at home. Somebody will be with you shortly. And we all come together to greet that person, and whatever their need is, whether that's booking an appointment, we keep a stack of cards at the front desk. So if anybody walks in for a walk-in, we just ask that they go on their phone and and book online. Otherwise, if there's somebody who has a gap in their books, they maybe would take that person as a walk-in. I think elderly clients, they love it at checkout because they don't have to worry about, is my card information there? They love the Express Pay because they can just waltz right out to their next thing, playing tennis, whatever their next doctor's appointment is. And so I think they get real used to like seeing their stylist be on time for their appointment and that person greeting them right away. So they definitely get really close with their stylist and and make themselves at home. Once you've done it once and it's just like keeping an eye on people who have never been in before. But once somebody has come in, they make themselves right at home. They grab a drink, they use the bathroom, they wait up front, and everybody's on their phones waiting anyways. So
I love that, like how it fosters the relationship between the stylist and the client overall.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've got a couple
just come in and just sit down in that where that person's tools are, and they just are like, okay, I'm here for my
yeah. Okay, so we've got a couple more. From Lisa, we have, who takes care of keeping the house running smooth throughout the day? All of the stylists, or is it more of like a combined, I guess, effort?
Yeah, so our stylists have a pretty minimal set of job expectations. They, rip foils, fold towels in their downtime for side work. They, if somebody is on break and they can help somebody who's wandered in to buy product or something or book an appointment, we might ask that person, hey, can you come help the person up front? But really, that's it. There isn't a whole lot of other stuff that the stylists are asked to do. So myself, as one of our owners, I field any calls or emails that come through, but the bulk of our booking is done online.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a couple of more. We'll just take a couple of more. Okay, we have another question. Any tips on how to communicate effectively the change to clients?
There's definitely like really fun marketing ways to do this. I think like just enabling people with the knowledge, like here's how with using Aura, just showing clients how they can do everything themselves. They can book their own appointments, they can reschedule, they can, people love being taught how to do the thing, and then they can do all of that for themselves online. So, if I do sometimes talk with somebody over the phone, it might be someone who's had a tech issue and they weren't sure, like, how do I put my card info on? So, I handle a couple calls like that, but really I try to keep it light and positive and just walk them through whatever their sticking point is that they're stuck on. And then once we get through that sign up process and get their information in, then it really just like takes care of itself from there. So once they know how to do it, then they take care of scheduling their own appointments.
I was going to say, as a consumer, I feel like I'm very similar to you. I feel really empowered. You know what I mean? When I have the tools and I'm able to kind of manage that experience myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a lot easier for some reason than helping my mom. Like somehow helping my mom with her phone makes me more upset than helping a random stranger navigate it.
Yeah. No, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah. Okay. And from Lisa again, we have, how about new guests? How do you manage new guests who are maybe not sure of who they should or need to book with?
Yeah, so in all of our stylist profiles, both in Aura and on our website, we have a bio. We have, some stylists, anybody who's open for a service is somebody who feels comfortable providing that service. We don't make our stylists do any sort of services that they don't want to. So with some confidence, a customer could pick anybody, but if they are looking for a specific stylist suggestion, they can always email me and I can give them one. Otherwise, really just with new guests, it's, you know, when they walk in the salon, like when you see on the appointment that a new guest is coming in, we always like to be there right away when they get there to just give them a quick tour. Like, hey, did you get the chance to check in on your phone yet? And they either say, oh, I no, I just walked in the door, or yes, I responded 3 to the text message. And I either say, great, that lets your stylist know that you're here, or, and then, you know, and then I walk away. Or if they say no, and, you know, I just say, you know, oh yeah, go ahead and respond 3 to the text message that will let your stylist know that you're here, and feel free to make yourself at home, grab a beverage, use the restroom, whatever, and, you know, hang out. Our waiting area is pretty, I think, you know, people have been in enough waiting areas in their life usually to get the vibe, but anytime you're coming into a new space, it's nice to know what it looks like. So lately I've just been putting more photos of the exterior and of the waiting room on our Google so that people kind of know what they're walking into. And yeah, and just like making a point to greet those new clients when they get in.
I love that. That probably makes them feel like so important too, like on their very first time in. So I love that.
Yeah.
So last question that we have in the chat is, okay, so this is a really good one. So have you found, so obviously since your stylists have, you know, added responsibilities now, the question is, are you needing to add additional time to services to allow for the stylist to handle these extra duties? Or is it just something that's kind of like built into the workflow, I would assume?
Some people, yes, some people no. I think every stylist is a little bit different. The
Sure.
majority of folks, you know, it's a really quick thing. So there isn't a whole lot of that. It's not really that different than like going up and greeting how you normally would. And you know, most stylists, if they weren't, you know, we love when people are pre-booking. If most stylists before were like hovering over the front desk person's shoulder and like telling the front desk how to do it, you know, it really didn't change the time that the stylist was taking. I think we had a stylist or two who, when we were shut down, they wanted that extra 15 minutes on added on to some of their services in order to, you know, do all the sanitation theater that we were all doing for a very long time, and make sure that everything, you know, some people need that extra time, or they just wanted like a little breather in between clients. But we were able to customize how each stylist books. So the folks who don't need it, they love being back to back all day. They do that, they do their thing. And then the folks who are slower and like more of that breathing room, they take it. We're not super hardcore about that. We just really think mindfully when we price somebody's time, like what the supply and demand is, and then how much time does it really take, and are we being honest with ourselves about how much time something takes us.
Right. Love that. Okay. Well, that was the last question in the chat. Hattie, thank you so much again for kind of chatting with us today and talking about the deskless model. I definitely think that this is for sure resonated with me, and I'm sure as well with the people that we have on our call. And to everybody on the call, keep in mind, again, like I said before, we will be sending out the recording for the entire call just in case you want to watch it again, or if you were unable to attend. And anybody who signs on in the month of October will get an iPad on us to help you go deskless. So, Hattie, thank you again. And as always, it was a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. If anybody has any more questions, they can DM me on Instagram at Hattie Does My Hair.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Well, thanks, everybody. Bye.